All right, so it's been a little while since I've done a Q&A video on this channel, so I'm excited to answer your guys' questions. You sent through some over on Instagram, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. They were really great this time around, and I probably picked a few too many to answer, so hopefully this video is not too long. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get into the questions. All right, so first question, what's your best tip for finding good locations for shoots? And for me, it's definitely going to be a combination of using Google Maps and photospheres to sort of get a feel for a certain area or neighborhood, and actually physically going there, whether it's just taking a day just to drive around or take a bus and go and walk around a place or an area and really get a feel. Obviously take a camera with me, whether it's just my phone or maybe my little Ricoh GR just to take some recce photos. Sometimes I would just go to a certain neighborhood or area and just kind of wing it, but I've definitely learned over time that it's a much better idea to actually go to the physical location beforehand. Images on Google only update every few months, maybe sometimes every few years, so you never know if that wall or that building that you want to shoot in front of has been repainted in the last few months to a completely different color, or there could be repair works or road works going on in the location that you want to shoot at the time you want to shoot it. Obviously, if you're traveling overseas, you can't always do that, so I will just rely on Google Earth images or Google Maps images until I actually get there, but I'm definitely going to want to check out the location the day before I go to shoot. And in terms of like day to day, when I'm at home or when I'm in a different city in Australia, I'm always looking around, keeping an open eye for locations. And if I see one, I usually just take a photo on my phone and then I upload it to a special Milanote board that I have, as well as a screenshot of the Google Maps location of exactly where I am when I took that photo. For me these days, I'm not actually really looking for like crazy, unique, special locations. Sometimes something as simple as the colors of the buildings or the way that the light falls in the location will be interesting enough for me to chuck the location into my Milanote board for future reference. I think sometimes if we put too much emphasis on the location to do the heavy lifting, I mean, obviously it depends on the idea of the photo shoot altogether. If you do want the location to be the spectacle of the photo, then obviously, you're going to have to look for a location that is special. But for me, I've really just been trying to look for locations that complement the idea of the photo shoot rather than being the main focus. All right, so next question is, would you ever try shooting portraits at night? I think a lot of people that I've spoken to or met sort of take my unwillingness to shoot nighttime photos as me being afraid to shoot in low light or use high ISOs and things like that, or that I'm not experienced enough to shoot in those situations or use off-camera flash and adding my own lights. But the truth is that I really enjoyed and took a ton of night photos during my career as a wedding photographer. And I used to really enjoy getting out and creating unique things with off-camera flash after the sun went down. But for me now, given that I'm shooting way less weddings and I'm more so experimenting and creating my own work, more passion projects than ever, for me really it's just a stylistic choice. When you have the freedom to do literally anything, I think it's important to set yourself some sidelines for your style. And one of those for me is just to really focus on natural light and just master it as much as I possibly can. I really just don't want to spread myself too thin. And nighttime photography is something that I enjoy looking at when I come across a great photo, whether it's in a magazine or on the internet, but it's just not something that I myself have ever really wanted to master. When it comes to nighttime, my camera goes back in the bag. I'm working on editing photos and videos or just enjoying a night out with my friends and not worrying about having to take a single photo. For me, it's something that's just worked out really well. The next question is, how did you get started with photography? And this is actually something that I have answered in depth in another video on my channel. So rather than go into detail about that on this video, I'll just leave that linked down in the description below. How do you nail the right exposure for skin when shooting film? So this is something that I actually had to learn the hard way, and I have recently been using a light meter for most of my shots. At least when I change location to a new location or the light changes somewhat, I will use an app in my phone called Light Meter. I will put it up on the screen here. And basically what you do is you point your phone at the scene and then it gives you a reading. You can change the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed, depending on the settings that you want to shoot at. So if you choose ISO 100, 2.8, it'll give you the shutter speed. Or if you choose the shutter speed and the ISO, then it'll give you the aperture. More importantly, for skin tones, what I've been doing is just taking my phone and going right in close to the model, taking a photo where it's mostly like their skin in the photo itself. And then I will use that reading, and then I will go 1 or 2 stops above that reading. So if it's telling me that I need a 400th of a second, I will generally shoot at 200 or 100. I really want to buy an incident light meter. It's just another thing that I will have to carry around, put in my bag and spend money on. But I think it will actually help me to get a more accurate reading of the light. You basically hold this little device up next to the skin of the person in that scene, and it'll give you a really accurate reading of the light. And then obviously I'll add my 1 or 2 stops overexpose on top of that. Next question is how to deal with burnout and how to stop comparing yourself to other photographers. So there seems to be this kind of unspoken link between feeling burned out and comparing yourself to others. And I think that it is actually very closely linked together. We see something that's successful, we copy it. And then the next thing that comes along that's successful, we copy that. And we're just endlessly kind of chasing the next person. And often that person who you're chasing is somebody who put their own personality, put their own twist on the work and the things that they are creating. And then we end up just molding our personality into other people all the time. And we never actually have the conviction to put our own personality, our own fingerprint on our work. And that's why you feel like you're on this like never-ending hamster wheel to keep up with other people, because even if you do create work that gains traction and people like it, deep down you still know that it's just a copy of something else that somebody already made. And so while the feedback is there, the fulfillment is missing. So I think it's a really good idea and a practice as a creator to avoid this feeling of burnout. Really just remember and ingrain it in your creative process that you need to make this thing your own. You need to have conviction in your personality and the kind of things that you want to put out there, and not to be afraid of not being accepted, because ultimately that's why we copy, is because we're afraid that the thing that we want to create or that we have in our mind won't be successful because it's never been done before. But when you really think of everybody who's been successful, they've kind of just come out of nowhere, come out of the blue, and what they were creating just all of a sudden became popular. But it's never because they analyzed everything that was going on and created this like amalgamation of everything that's popular. It's because they just put their own personality in it and other people resonated. You can't please everyone. The best practice is just to be yourself, create things that are authentic to you and original. And I hope this isn't like super cliche, but it's kind of the truth. I want to do more creative shoots with wardrobe stylists. Tips? A great place to start is just to do a deep dive into social media. So find some photos that you love, and most of the time the team that worked on those photos, whether it's a fashion campaign or a test shoot, they'll be credited underneath the post. So usually with Instagram, I will go in and follow all of those stylists that I really like and resonate with their work, and then I will just go through and see who they're following and who follows them. Just spend a couple of hours just flicking through Instagram. Try not to get distracted by reels or anything like that, but just try to find a network of creatives, stylists in your city or close by. You'll definitely come across some more established people, but eventually you'll come across some accounts that are just starting out in styling. Maybe they've got 2 or 3 projects that they've already done, but they're obviously just starting out. I would definitely start with reaching out to those stylists. They're generally more likely to work and collaborate with you on a TFP shoot for free. Or if they already have a little bit of experience, they might ask you just to cover, their travel or their expenses on the day, which in some cases I think is totally worth it. You have to be willing to invest in your own photography in order to build a portfolio. I think probably the biggest tip from me is that it really helps if you approach them with an idea. So a mood board with the kind of look that you want to go for, potential locations that you want to shoot, potential talent. It even helps if you've already identified who the model or the person in the photo is going to be, and potential dates and times that you want to shoot. And this might seem at first like you're kind of being a little bit inflexible, but it really does help because it just makes it an easy yes or an easy no for that person. And if it's a no, it could just be a schedule clash, in which case you know that you can reach out to them in the near future again and potentially find a date where you could both shoot together. You definitely want everybody who's working on the shoot to be on the same page and to want to create the same things as you. People will definitely respect you more if you have a very clear direction with what you want to create and where you want to go with your photography. Another way would be to reach out to fashion schools, colleges, and universities and see if any of their students need photos, which is generally the case. And this is another really great way to make connections, especially when you're starting out, because you're connecting with peers that are just starting their journey like you, and they may go on to work in the industry. And trust me, if they meet you when they first start out, they will never forget who you are. And I think it's just great to embark on a journey alongside other people versus going it completely alone. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so another question in a similar vein, how do you go about contacting agencies to work with their models? Every agency will have a contact form or an email address on their website. So all you need to do is explain that you're looking for TFP or test shoot opportunities. So this means that generally everybody that's working on the shoot doesn't get paid, it's just for investing in their portfolios. Like I said before, I would have some mood boards ready, so 2 or 3, maybe even 4 or 5 mood boards that you can give to the agency to say like, hey, these are the kinds of things that I would like to create. And then the process from there really depends on the agency. So I've had agencies that want to meet me in person before they go ahead. Others have asked me just a series of questions through email. Where am I based? What kind of shoots do I want to do? What am I looking to get out of the collaboration? And generally they'll send over a short list of models. I'll pick the talent that I think is right for the idea of the shoot that I want to create. And from there, you just start planning with them, dates, times, everything like that. And generally it's pretty simple. Just send them all the photos after the shoot. Make sure that if you collaborate with a makeup artist and a stylist, that they also get the photos. And yeah, that's pretty much it. What's the biggest tip you wished you knew as a beginner? I think for me, it's remember why you started. For me, I started photography because I loved interesting images that evoked emotion. Then I started researching gear and techniques and just trying to learn as much as I could. And to be honest, I kind of got caught up in this like superficial world of professional photography. I think this happens naturally to a lot of people when they start learning the technical side of photography. So when I first started, I would just look at an image and I instantly knew that I liked it. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I love the vibe of this photo. But then since learning all these things about photography, I would start to like analyze the photo, like, oh, is it sharp? Like zooming in on it. Do they use the correct shutter speed? Is the background blurry enough? Is the horizon line straight? Oh, it's off by like 1 degree. And in some ways you kind of lose your ability to just like feel a photo, like feel the energy of a photo. You get bogged down in all the technical stuff. So I would just say, remember why you started and just pursue that goal and try not to get sucked into the technical side of photography. Favorite film stock. Recently it's been Gold 200, specifically in the 120 medium format. Even though sometimes it's hard to shoot that speed of film, especially when you're overexposing it, particularly on overcast days or after the sun has really started to set, especially because most of the lenses I have only stop down to 2.8, but I actually really prefer the colors of Gold over Portra. Even now that I've started scanning my own film, when I scan the photos shot on Gold, they just look amazing, like straight out. But if I know I need to be a little bit more flexible, then I've always got some Portra 400 on hand. Your favorite analog camera and favorite digital camera. Digital is definitely going to have to be the Sony ZV-E1 just because of how capable it is for both photo and video in such a small form factor. Some people will obviously say, oh, like 12 megapixels is not enough. And I got a lot of comments like that on my video dedicated to shooting photos on the ZV-E1, but most people just don't live in the real world of photography. Like most people aren't cropping in that much on their images, and most people aren't printing their images at all, let alone printing them to the size like bigger than a shopfront window. If we're talking strictly photography, I think the X-T5 definitely has to be in the conversation, as well as the R6 is just an all-around workhorse. It's just so hard to pick, and I also haven't tried all of the cameras that exist at the moment. So yeah, it's really hard to give a definitive answer on what my favorite is because it does change quite a lot.
Definitive decision.
Definitive. Can you define that?
For analog, it's definitely going to be the Mamiya RZ67. The 6x7 negative is just really beautiful, and I love the experience of shooting on this camera, both with the waist level viewfinder and with the prism viewfinder. Just the look of the photos that you can get with that 110 2.8 lens is just out of control. And the fact that it's also a bellows system, so they're really theoretically is no minimum focusing distance. I just love the RZ. Even though I actually use my Mamiya 645 way more often, you can get a very similar look to the RZ with the 110 with the 645, and the bonus is that you get an extra 5 frames per roll. So instead of 10, it's 15, which for me, it saves me money, and it just means that I don't have to change film as often. So I'm leaning towards the 645, but the RZ is just goated for so many reasons. Where do you see yourself with photography and YouTube going forward, and where would you like to go? Honestly, this is something that I think about all the time, and I have done quite a bit of soul searching over the last 12 months. So really figuring out what is my focus and impact going to be in the future. I've really just been following what I'm passionate about, which is just creating impactful and beautiful imagery. I would honestly really love to dive more into fashion and commercial photography to the point where I could start working on brand campaigns. And those opportunities just haven't quite come to me yet, but I'm moving in that direction. In terms of YouTube, I'd love to just document that journey. I've really just enjoyed creating educational content for you guys on this channel. And I think that's really where my strengths are when it comes to creating videos. I'm not too much of a lifestyle vlogger, that kind of thing. Honestly, I wouldn't mind slowing down a little bit on the equipment and gear review side of YouTube. While it was really great for my channel's growth in the beginning and gaining visibility, I think I've sort of attracted a audience that is more interested in having conversations around equipment rather than photography itself, finding interesting stories to tell, progressing creatively, and all that other good stuff. That's not to say I won't share my opinion on certain pieces of gear in the future. It's definitely part of what I do, but I think more so just sharing my journey and sharing what I've learned is going to be like the base of what I'm going to be creating moving forward. All right, last question. How do you get your film photos so crisp? This is an easy one to answer. It's definitely going to be a combination between the technique and the equipment that you use. So for technique, it's definitely about getting your images in focus and using a high enough shutter speed to make sure you freeze your subject. On the equipment side of things, my secret weapon is definitely the upgrade from 35mm to 120 film. You get so much more detail and quality out of 120 film. It's actually such a big improvement over 35mm. I'm definitely still shooting both formats, but if I'm really wanting the highest resolution and detail out of my photos, so that crisp look that you're talking about, I'm definitely going to be reaching for my medium format camera. All right, so that's it for the Q&A. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other burning questions, I'll try to answer as many as I can down in the comment section below, so head down there, leave a comment. Appreciate you guys for sticking around. Once again, this probably was a long video, so thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.